Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to take a deep dive into something pretty heavy that has to do with a previous owner of a YouTube family channel getting arrested. Now, you may have seen a few videos ago we talked about family channels and their impact using the Ballinger family channel as an example, but now we're going to be taking a deeper look at a family that we briefly mentioned in that video but didn't get into too much detail with. We're going to be talking about 8 Passengers. 8 Passengers is a family vlog channel started in 2015 featuring Ruby and Kevin Frank and their 6 kids, hence the name 8 Passengers. This Christian Utah family channel grew very quickly. Within 2 years, they had gained over 1 million subscribers, with videos such as Baby Clubs Out of Crib became huge standouts as people lived vicariously through them. At their peak, they had about 2.5 million subscribers. However, their channel actually no longer exists, which we'll get into more later. Their 6 kids, Sherry, Chad, Abby, Julie, Russell, and Eve, had their lives documented on the internet for the world to watch and see. Several of the siblings actually started their own vlog channels showing off their families and their day-to-day happenings. So you could almost say their entire family and most of their extended family are like YouTube celebrities, or at least they have a pretty big following. Several videos began going viral after getting clipped from their vlogs, and the order of them is hard to find, so let's start with the lunch controversy. Ruby Frank's 6-year-old daughter had gone to school like any normal day. Her teacher noticed that she didn't have lunch, and so concerned, she called her parent Ruby to ask why her 6-year-old Eve did not have lunch. Ruby responded by saying this.
I just got a text message from your teacher, and she said that Eve did not have lunch today, and can I bring the lunch over to school? I responded and just said, Eve is responsible for making her lunches in the morning, and she actually told me she did have lunch. So the natural outcome is she's just going to need to be hungry. Hopefully nobody gives her food and nobody steps in and gives her lunch.
And a lot of people were outraged by this attitude, but it got worse. One clip of her eldest son, Chad, wrestling with his younger brother, Russell, innocently was shown in one of the vlogs.
They're gonna think you're torturing him. Stop it. I know you're not, but it looks like you are. Okay, Russell. I'm only gonna say it one more time, and then you're gonna lose the privilege to eat dinner.
They were playing as boys do, but Ruby was really unhappy with this, as she said that Chad would hurt his little brother. He also played an innocent prank on his brother, telling him that they would be going to Disneyland, so an excited Russell got up, prepared to go to Disney before his brother revealed that it was a prank. He also played a prank on his younger brother where he helped him hang on a basketball hoop and let him hang there for a little bit on his own. Well, following this, Ruby decided the most rational punishment would be that Chad was not allowed to sleep in his bed and had to sleep on a beanbag. Not for a day, not for 2 days, but for 7 months following this incident. In 2020, the suspicions and accusations of the family began to grow in an undeniable point. People began to want to take action against them. This article by Insider, written in 2020, explains Ruby and Kevin Frank's lives took an unexpectedly dark turn about 4 weeks ago, when Ruby posted a video on their family YouTube channel 8 Passengers where she and her kids spoke about some of the things that they'd been through recently. She never thought it would backfire and cause weeks of turmoil for their whole family. Something her 15-year-old son Chad said turned out to be a particularly contentious issue for viewers. It sparked accusations of abuse, death threats, and a visit from Child Protective Services. My bedroom was taken away for 7 months, Chad said in the video. I was sleeping on a beanbag since October. Ruby told Insider that the previous video showed how thrilled Chad was to have a room again. He had done a bedroom reveal where he was excited that he put LED lights up in his bedroom and he was hanging puzzles on his wall that he had put together and glued. Ruby told Insider it never occurred to him that it would turn on us. Clips from their vlogs began to gain virality, and compilations of their worst moments became a sensation on YouTube. Videos where Ruby was deliberately looking through their text messages and reading them aloud for everyone to hear, discussing their punishments and mistakes for everyone to hear, and oftentimes the punishments were seen as extremely severe in comparison to the action themselves. This is the year that people began to call out 8 passengers for being toxic, and the Franks responded by trying to send a cease and desist to YouTube drama channels that covered it. Eventually, they sent Chad away to a, quote, behavioral camp, which, if you guys have seen Bad Baby's expose on the one that Dr. Phil sent to her, which we can make a video on if you haven't, but you would know that oftentimes these places abuse the children that they have under their care. They are also for children who have severe behavioral issues, and going there for something not as severe can leave you traumatized, as you never needed to reform in the first place. And is pranking your brother considered an extreme behavioral issue? The Insider article continues, Ruby and Kevin said Chad was being taught the consequences of his actions when he was told to sleep somewhere other than his little brother's room. Kevin said the decision came amid years of physical and emotional damaging behavior that Chad was participating in with his siblings and classmates that ended up getting him suspended from school. This was also why he was sent to the Anasazi Foundation's Wilderness Therapy Program, which says it provides intervention services for troubled teens for 10 weeks. The article goes on to explain that Ruby felt like they gave their child a choice and were teaching their children how to be self-governing adults by giving him a choice between the couch, a pull-out mattress, and a beanbag. Chad chose the beanbag because he felt it was the most comfortable. He also removed the doors to the room in an effort to be transparent and help regain his parents' trust, they said. More controversies began coming to light as people discovered more about how the Franks were raising their children. For example, the older children, who are over 16 at this point, have their phones monitored and taken away for bad behavior. The children often commented that they had no friends and felt incredibly isolated because their lives were posted everywhere and they felt as though they had no privacy. People began to comment about how their kids were growing and needed their own agency, but Ruby insisted her parenting was the right way, and that theme would continue into their next chapter. As articles came out, Ruby and Kevin had this to say to defend themselves. The Insider article says, the narrative about abusive parenting was a powerful one. It's everyone's prerogative to agree or disagree with family's parenting style, but it's quite another to accuse them of something as severe as child abuse. While some videos were made out of genuine concern, plenty were not. All of this is really ironic, Kevin said. So many of these individuals are coming and they're intending to do us harm by accusing us of exploiting children for money, yet they are here exploiting my children and my family for their own personal gain. Ruby says, does this sound like they're really worried about child abuse? It does not sound consistent with what they're saying, and it's because they're not being honest about their motive. Well, the fans begged to differ. One fan began a Change.org petition to have the children taken away from her care. Eventually, the Division of Child and Family Services in Utah were called on their behalf and did a visit from the home. Though they were called, they actually found nothing, as the kids were happily baking, doing puzzles, and spending time with their parents. Now, fast forward a little bit later to 2022, and their kids are beginning to grow up and get distant from their parents. With a few more kids out of the nest, Ruby decided that now is the time to start a new project called Mums of Truth and Connections. In these projects, Ruby would go on to give other parents advice on how to raise their kids, which began to reflect more of her mindset than her vlogs ever did. And this is when things take an abrupt turn. The 8 Passengers Family Vlog channel began to fade away. And Ruby wasn't alone in this. Ruby starts this channel with Jody Hildebrandt, which this Huffington Post article describes as a parenting support group offering paid classes and coaching. Now, let's talk about Jody Hildebrandt for a second, who was involved in this Moms of Truth. Who is she? This article by SK Pop describes her as a life coach, author, and the founder and designer of Connections in Utah. Furthermore, she has worked at Cirque Lodge, a drug rehabilitation institution focusing on addiction therapy, for 5 years. It's also important to note that it was reported in that same article According to the aforementioned website, she's also a therapist whose license was placed on probation for 18 months in January 2012 by the Utah Clinical Mental Health Counselor Licensing Board for discussing a patient's porn addiction with leaders at their Mormon church without said patient's permission. A lot of people had the belief that Connections was a cult, and SK Pop reports, Connections, Frank, and Hildebrand's channel sparked immediate worry, with observers tagging it as a cult. It advertises itself as a mom's support group that assists and rehabilitates individuals who are lost and stuck in the darkness of distortion, which gives birth to fear, despair, and all other self-destructive behaviors. However, her teachings have been criticized as radical, harmful, and authoritarian. Jody believes 3 essential concepts must be adopted to connect with somebody and entirely avoid distortion. If her followers do not follow these rules, they are said to be in distortion. Moreover, she also states that boundaries must be established to separate oneself from these people so they're not lured into distortion with them. However, as peaceful and harmless as these sound, people think Connections is a cult. They even reviewed the organization on its official website. Someone named Anna Marie wrote 6 months ago that I wouldn't trust this company. They use brainwashing tactics to manipulate you. They intentionally make you feel bad about yourself and use slander. People stay away from this company at all costs. They are a scam. In a Reddit post in 2022, a user asks what Connections really is, and one of the most upvoted response reads, Connections teachings are based off of principles. The 3 main base principles of truth are honesty, responsibility, and humility. But there are a plethora of other principles too. A person's sole purpose in life is to abide by the principles, and when you do so, you will be living in truth and be connected. However, when you don't abide by the principles, then you are disconnected. Distortion comes in when you take principles and twist them. At least, this is my understanding of it. Connection also teaches that adults can force children to do what they want. Children should not have a say, and what they do or want is up to the parent. Children have no right to privacy. Abortion is murder. Being on medications means you are living in distortion. TikTok and social media are brainwashing and corrupting our children and forcing the gay lifestyle onto them and turning them gay. Being gay is a sin and a choice if your child is acting out. Even if they're acting out in ways most teens do, send them to a rehabilitation center. Phones are more dangerous than guns. We don't need gun control. School shooters are just disconnected. If everyone gets connected, follows the principles, and lives in truth, then there will be no more school shootings.
What the fuck?
So, with all of that being said, how does the drama escalate from here? Well, in that same year, 2022, when everything was falling apart on their family channel, their eldest child, Sherry Frank, spoke out on how she had disconnected from their family entirely. She made a post on Instagram that stated that she was no longer in contact with her immediate family members and that she was working on things from the inside with other family members. She also denounced Connections and what Jody teaches on there. Her post said the following: While it is true that I'm not in contact with my immediate family and don't support the extreme beliefs of Connections, please remember that this is my real family. Despite good intentions, speculating, rumors, and gossip doesn't help us. I'd like to ask for privacy for me and my family as we work through this very difficult situation. Over the years, people warned Kevin and Ruby that due to their harsh behavior, once their kids moved from college, they would likely never be back. This article, again by SK Pop, also reported what her family members felt about the Connections page as a whole. Sherry also spoke about her mother's venture, Connections, where she gave advice to parents regarding their children. However, many, including Sherry, think that the advice given is too brutal for young kids as it sets an unreal expectation from the little ones. Not just Sherry, but Ruby's sisters have also come out in public to confess that Ruby is no longer on speaking terms with the family, as one of the sisters said. Connections has torn families apart. It is not a good group to be affiliated with, and hopefully one day she will realize it. The article also states Sherry has been vocal about her views on connections previously, as she was quick to respond to a woman who had some negative things to say about Ruby and the ventures. The woman in a post said, "I recognize there's a need for helpful counseling to help heal relationships. Destructive division is actually a dangerous and major part of what connections is perpetuating. The biggest problem is that Judy and Ruby often harshly and forcefully shame and batter people down in a brash and cruel manner when people ask questions or they have concerns." Sherry liked the post, and the 8 passengers' eldest daughter also commented by thanking the woman for her courage. Hence, it is clear that Sherry does not support the way in which her parents have brought her up. It also confirms that she does not propagate the idea of connections, which is run by her mother, Ruby Frank, of 8 passengers. Now, after Chad, her eldest son, took that social media break, he has been extremely private on social media. And Sherry was the only child with the confidence to contest her mother and her ways. Now, fast forward to 2023, and a few weeks ago, it was reported that CPS had finally taken note of all the reports, and this time everything was not so perfect at their home. According to the ABC article, Utah woman Ruby Frank, formerly the face of a now defunct YouTube channel 8 Passengers, was arrested in the southern Utah city of Evans. She was taken into custody at the home of Jody Hildebrand, who, alongside Miss Frank, runs counseling businesses and YouTube channel Connections Classroom. One of Miss Frank's children climbed out of a window in Miss Hildebrand's residence in Evans, ran to a neighbor's house, and asked for food and water, according to an affidavit filed by the Santa Clara Evans Public Safety Department. The condition of the juvenile was so severe that they were seen by Santa Clara Evans EMS and transported to a local area hospital. According to the affidavit, the neighbor saw duct tape on the schoolchild's ankles and wrists and called law enforcement. The boy was taken to a hospital where he was put on a medical hold due to his sleep lacerations from being tied up with rope from his malnourishment. Another child was later found malnourished in Hildebrand's house and was also taken to the hospital. During the search of the home, evidence was located consistent with the markings found on the juvenile, the release said. The article goes on to say the judge honored the police's request that she and Jody be denied bail as they are still awaiting trial. Jody's sisters, who also have family channels, posted to social media rejoicing about the arrest with a joint post on Instagram that reads, "For the last 3 years, we have kept quiet on the subject of our sister Ruby Frank for the sake of her children. Behind the public scene, we have done everything we could to try and make sure the kids were safe. We wouldn't feel right about moving forward with regular content without addressing the most recent events. Once we do, we will not be commenting on it further. Ruby was arrested, which needed to happen. Jody was arrested, which needed to happen. The kids are now safe, which is the #1 priority." They were not the only ones celebrating, as Sherry posted photos on her story when her mother was arrested, captioned, "Finally," as well as this saying, "Hi y'all, today has been a big day. Me and my family are so glad justice is being served. We've been trying to tell the police and CPS for years about this, and so glad they finally decided to step up. Kids are safe, but there's a long road ahead. Please keep them in your prayers and also respect their privacy." Both Jody and Sherry are still being held in jail for this trial. So guys, that's all we have so far. This has been a heavy deep dive, and I'm happy justice was served in some way, but it's just sad that it had to be at the expense of these poor children. Like, she had them tied up in her home. Imagine us judging her on things that came out and we didn't even know everything that was happening behind closed doors. As we all know, family channels should be abolished at this point, and maybe this is the start to a huge change on YouTube. Her channels have both been taken down, and she will not be allowed to create another channel again due to her content. Sherry is crowdsourcing videos of her mom saying anything sketchy or controversial, so she's asking people online if they can add them to a Google Doc. We assume in preparation for trial, she's trying to get all the evidence that she can get possible. We will be keeping you guys updated as the story begins to unfold. As always, feel free to leave this video a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any new tea spills from us. And for now, here is some well-deserved eye bleach.